Yeah, well, let's. I mean, if you want, let's just start. We've already kind of started. Let's just talk about the Lakers. Like you mentioned, injuries have been most for the big part of why they're at where they are. I think we've mentioned a few podcasts, past few basketball ones, but yeah, I mean, right now the defending champs, it's looking like they may not even get a home court advantage for the even if they pull out of this, probably won't get a home court advantage at all through the playoffs. So, um, yeah, I'll throw it to you. Do you feel are you buying or selling that the Lakers will be able to repeat as champions this year?
I'm selling. I honestly and it's not because I don't think they have the talent because I think they absolutely do. But there are certain concerns that I have, right? The first one is obviously Rajon Rondo. He's, not the biggest impact player when it comes to the regular season, but when it comes to the playoffs, the obviously we saw last year, the guy he steps it up. And they lost him and the sort of extra passing ability, the leadership he could bring off the bench. And I'm just not sure they have that kind of guy because as we've seen throughout this stretch where LeBron and AD are both hurt, I mean, who really is the leader on the court for them at this
I
point?
mean, I'm just speaking plain devil's advocate, but some Lakers fan would say that's where Dennis Schroeder comes in because
Yeah, and
although he
ideally he should, and I think production wise, obviously he's better than Rondo at this point in their careers. But does he have that same leadership quality that a Rajon Rondo has? I don't think so. And so in the playoffs, I think that intangible is very important to where, hey, you can get points and the assists and all these kind of things, but like we need a guy who's going to come and rally the troops when it gets tough, like right now, where they're the sixth seed, right? So yeah, I think they're an interesting spot because of that. Also, the Drummond fit has been sort of awkward so far. Statistically, he's putting up fine numbers. He's doing what he normally does, like 13 and 10, I think. But most of that has been without LeBron or AD. And when Anthony Davis did come back, I think their combined like defensive net rating was horrible together. Like they were awful on the court together. But when you took Drummond off and it was just Anthony Davis and like Marc Gasol or somebody else, it was far better. And I think ultimately that's just because the same concerns that we brought up when they signed Drummond was he's not a very good defender. Like he's not versatile. Even as like a rim protector, he's not amazing at it. He's almost like a Hassan Whiteside to where like sure he can get some blocks and put up like good statistics, but realistically he doesn't actually make your team better defensively. So that's a concern of mine, but also the main concern that I have is just the fact that LeBron, the way that he talked about that injury, you saying like, yeah, I might never recover from this.
Yeah.
That's concerning if you're a Lakers fan because the way this team is built around LeBron James. That is how every team LeBron is on is built. And so whenever he's not there or he like when he leaves teams and you have to see the aftermath of them kind of having the same roster without him, it's never pretty because he is the primary focus of the offense, sort of like we see with Luka or Trey Young or some of these guys. The team is built around him, and so when he's not there, it's a lot harder for it to succeed. And as opposed to maybe some other stars like a Kevin Durant or something else, because of their ability to just come in and shoot, their offense and they're also not like as big of a ball handler as LeBron is. The offense isn't solely built around the ball being in their hands. So teams like that where Durant gets hurt, it's not as big of a worry for the rest of the team to be able to cohesively fit together as like a Lakers team is. So yeah, I do worry about how LeBron and AD are going to look coming back from injury because so far when they did play coming back from injury, it was not pretty.
So yeah, yeah. Hmm. I want to buy because I know that there's good talent, and so I think I'm gonna buy. But I do have concern. I do have those are all legitimate concerns, especially like I know AD got hurt and he's coming back, and I'm gonna knock on wood here, but I mean last year I feel like was a rare year we saw in Anthony Davis' career where he stayed healthy, and especially since they had a really short off season because they didn't win the finals. It was basically like what a month basically as an off season to recuperate. Now, granted, he's been injured and he's had a chance, but I just Yeah, I worry about that, and yeah, what LeBron said about his ankle, about the ankle sprain for a guy like LeBron that's very, dependent on his explosion. It may not be the same explosion he had when he was, 19 years old and in the league, but it's still, elite level first step in athleticism. It's worrying because I saw, there was in Tim Duncan's last year. It didn't come out till after the year, but I think, and it seemed like he was ready to play more years after that, but he had a really inconvenient knee injury, and I forgot the age he was, but being in his late 30s, it's especially he couldn't recover from it the same. Like he sat out. He tried to. It just wasn't at at some point. There's a reason Father Time's undefeated. At some point, it will creep up on you, and you just can't recover. And the same. And I'm not saying that's going to happen to LeBron, but I just worry that may happen to LeBron, and I hope it doesn't, because I mean I kind of would like to see him and his son both be in the league at the same time. That'd be really kind of cool. But
Even
yeah,
in the short term, I mean, I
yeah,
really want to see the Battle of LA happen in the
that too.
playoffs.
We never got that last year. So,
Right.
um, yeah. But yeah, as a team as a whole, like when I look at the roster on paper, I go, man, I think their team's better on paper. I think we talked about, so even with adding Drummond, like I would say Drummond's better than Dwight and JaVale McGee. And then I believe did they have the Morris twin last year, or did they just? I think they
Yeah,
grabbed. Okay,
they did.
but regardless, and like you said with Schroeder, I think Schroeder's more a better scorer definitely than Rondo. Maybe not as good passing, and maybe not as good defensively and like leadership, like you mentioned. So there's some give and take there for the Lakers, but overall, I'm not gonna count out LeBron. And also, just looking at the West, I mean, I don't want to be. I like the way Utah plays, but once again, we've seen Rudy Gobert be ineffective in the playoffs, and then once again, like, do they have anybody to really stop LeBron? Just thinking if they match up, like, do they have anyone they can say, okay, they can guard LeBron? Not really. Um, and then I'm trying to think. And then the Phoenix Suns. If we talk to our friend Kyle, it's they got as good as they've been. There are issues there. They're young. We're not sure how well Aiton's going to play. He hasn't been consistent on either side of the ball.
They
Uh,
lost by 35 last night.
yeah, and then Booker. I think Booker will show up. There's no, but once again, Booker's not a defensive stopper really. And then we've seen CP3 be you know okay in the playoffs, but we've also seen him. Some would say he fell short. I'm not a part of that train, but once again, like, only really person that to guard LeBron would be Michael Bridges, but then also who's going to guard AD? They really don't have anybody. Once again, that would fall on Ayton, and I wouldn't put money on Ayton to hold his own there. So I mean, even the Clippers probably are the best chance, like you mentioned, to knock out the Lakers, or maybe if the Lakers fall into a playing spot. Uh, Steph. I don't see. They could lose to a Steph Curry. I could see. I don't think. I think they'd beat Memphis or Portland, but I would like to see my Spurs have a chance. But I'm gonna be realistic here and say no. So I think they'll be able to. But it all depends on the health. If LeBron can get back to at least somewhat what he's been doing. If AD, it's so cliche to say, but it's the truth. If those two can stay healthy, I think they can win the West, and they can probably win the East. I mean, they have two of the top 3 or 5 best players on their team. It's just hard to, especially in basketball. It's the one, basketball's the true thing where one guy can take over. So I'm gonna buy on the Lakers, but I wouldn't, gun to my head, I wouldn't buy on them, if that makes any sense.
It
I'm
does.
not
I agree with
confident.
you
I'm not
too.
confident.
Like,
That's the
yeah, I mean, if they're fully healthy, like I said, there's no doubt about their talent because, like we said, I think Schroeder's better. I think he's an upgraded point guard. I think Drummond, he's an upgraded center. Like, overall, I think they are a better team talent wise than they were last year. It's just the health. Like, because if LeBron, at least so far, LeBron, obviously that it was concerning. He's not, I think, going to miss the next week or two. I don't know the
Oh,
exact
really?
length,
I thought he was just
but
sitting out this back to back.
I might be wrong on that. I thought I saw something about him missing a week. I'm not confirmed, but I mean, obviously it affected him, so now he's having to miss a little bit more time. Anthony Davis so far coming back from the injury has not been impressive. I think he's actually the worst defender since coming back from injury on the Lakers, which we know how good of a defense player he
Yeah.
is. So
So
that just shows that the injury is still affecting him. But if they can come back healthy for playoff time, then I have no doubt about the Lakers' ability to come out of the West. It's just that's the big concern to me because if they're not healthy, I just don't see other guys on this team being able to step it up. And also, one totally random thing that I think we're going to see, regardless of health or not, come playoff time, is probably either less Montrezl Harrell or less Andre Drummond because neither of them
Oh,
are good defensive centers. And I heard an interesting stat the other day. So the net defensive rating of Drummond plus AD on the court is negative 6.6.
oof.
The net defensive rating of Anthony Davis and Marc Gasol on the court is positive 8.5. And we saw, I don't know if you heard this, but Kyle Kuzma, I think a few games ago, in his post-game interview, he actually said, we need Marc Gasol to play more, which that's pretty rare that you hear that like a teammate is saying this, like this named person needs to play more or
Yeah.
this named person needs to play less. Typically players don't like talk about the minutes and the rotations and those kind of things in that detail.
Hmm.
But Kyle Kuzma came out and said that, and I can't imagine that if Kyle Kuzma is saying that he's the only one that's feeling that. I think there has to be rumblings within the players or the organization that Marc Gasol needs to be playing more because although he did not have the most amazing start to his time in LA, at least right now, the spacing that he provides, even just the veteran presence and defense that he can provide, just the consistency, I think is needed when they are sort of floundering and not they don't have the chemistry that some other teams might have built so far just because of everybody being hurt.
Yeah, that is a very good point. Because that was kind of the falling point for. I mean, it wasn't injuries per se, but it was falling point for the Clippers last year. It seemed like was there was just a lot of new pieces and they hadn't really played together that much. And when it came to crunch time, the Nuggets were one solid unit, and it seemed like the Clippers were not. So, um,
And also, I mean, there's a reason the Clippers let Montrezl Harrell go, and they didn't really put up that much of a fuss, is he's not
yeah,
a good defender. And Jokic exposed him in that series. Which Jokic is going to beat most center, like pretty much every center in this league at this point. But Montrezl Harrell is a very bad defender, and if Drummond's not amazing either, I think you can't have both of them as your primary options. It's the big men.
yeah. And then also like last point too, like and if we go further, I already mentioned the West. I feel like they have the advantage. Even the East, like we kind of saw the Heat just weren't on the same level as they were last year, and the Heat were rolling last year. They're not really rolling this year, so I'm not as confident if they somehow make a run. Like and the Nets, I worry about I worry that about the Nets too. Like Harden, I mean, when's Harden the last time Harden played? And Durant's been in and out, and Kyrie's been in and out. So that would be a worry for me for them too. Is once again crunch time. Like uh, I just don't think ISO ball is going to win you that much. Going to get you that far in the playoffs, especially when you haven't played that much with each other. And then
Yeah, on court chemistry is big time in the playoffs.
maybe Philly because they have Ben Simmons on LeBron and Embiid on AD, but it just seems like health's always a concern with Philly. Like one of their key guys gets hurt, so um, that's the only team that would. I mean, maybe the Bucks, but I'm not too confident in the Bucks. So yeah, I mean, end of story. I think I'm by the Lakers, but it's very interesting to see where they fall in terms of the playoffs because if they fall too far, I mean, granted, if they get I don't know. There's a lot of good matchups. It'll be interesting. I'm not sure how many weeks are left in the season, but
I really just want them. I want them to play LA so bad.
I
The
want
the
that matchup
Clippers.
too.
I
It'd be
don't care
great
what
if we
round
get
it
at least
is.
get that first round because it could happen. I think Clippers they're already clinched when I saw
They
the
have clinched. They're tied with the Nuggets for the 3 seed, but they lose a tiebreaker, so they're at 4. So that means the Lakers would have to go up to 5, which they could do if they
yeah
win and the Mavericks lose, or they could match up as the 3 and 6. So there's some possibilities there, which like I said, I really want that. I think the Lakers would probably prefer they don't face them in the first round
yeah
because the
they do.
Clippers are healthy and rolling, and the Lakers are recovering. So I think they'd rather probably get some momentum in that first round and face them like the second. Um, but it'd be fun regardless.
Yeah, it'd be a heck of a series. So alrighty, so we're approaching the end of the season.